tonight. Stepping down. Conservative MP Maurice Vellacott leaves a high-profile position, and he's taking a swipe at his opponents. Air attack.
The pollen counts have gone up really high.
Floating in and making people miserable. Why does this allergy season seem so bad, and what can you do about it? Making the grade. They have ideas for Ontario's government, and the politicians are paying attention. And tough questions. So tough, scientists still don't have the answers.
What is the universe made of? What is the nature of gravity?
What else don't we know? Kelly Crow answers that in a feature report.
The National. Here is Peter Mann.
There's an assumption out there that young people have more interest in breaking laws than making them. Well, this next story proves that theory wrong. 3 bills conceived by Ontario high school students have been working their way through the provincial legislature. Mike Wise has more.
It's taken months of work for these students to get here, the Ontario legislature, to attend a special session called just so that politicians could give second reading to 3 private members' bills that were drafted by teenagers.
What this process has done is let students know that they can have an influence.
This is part of an initiative by CBC News in Toronto that asked Ontario high school students to come up with ideas for private members' bills. Last fall, they sent in more than 100 ideas, and the main parties here chose 3 they agreed to introduce and debate. The bills dealt with issues of real concern to teenagers. One called for better recycling programs in schools. Another, healthy food guidelines for school cafeterias. The third wanted a new campaign informing young people about their rights on the job. When the votes were called, the result was unanimous.
Mr. McGinty.
All 3 bills passed second reading, although students say they weren't taking anything for granted.
I didn't know how many people were going to stand up and how many people were going to be there, so it was a surprise.
The surprise continued with a visit from the Premier.
But if that were to become law, you would have a lasting influence for good in public policy in Ontario. It's pretty heady stuff, eh?
They were they could have been my mother.
But it turns out some of the students are already influencing public policy. The Labour Minister telling them he's including some of their ideas for reaching young people in an updated poster that'll be put up in workplaces.
All new posters that will be printed will have this information on it that wasn't there before.
It's amazing how they did it so quickly. I mean, I guess it was just a rising issue and they had to deal with it at some point.
The 3 bills could now go to committee for review. It won't happen before the end of the school year, though. But that's okay, say students. They'll stay politically active. They've still got a few years left in high school and a few years before they're old enough to vote. Mike Wise, CBC News, Toronto.
As Mike mentioned, this story was a CBC initiative. In fact, Mike came up with the idea himself and was the driving force behind